Do you sometimes get so busy keeping your business together that you forget to nurture the relationships that are around you? Have you ever sat down for coffee, dinner, or lunch with your significant other and felt disconnected or like you had nothing else to say? Well, this is exactly what we're talking about in today's episode. I am bringing in confidence coach and love coach, Demi Paterson, who is going to share with us not just the importance of nurturing those relationships that are nearest and dearest to us, but giving us strategies where we can build in time to get connected and to make sure that we are living and loving those around us. I'm Clara Capano, and this is Women Winning Their Way. Well, Demi, welcome to the show. It is so great to have you here as a guest on Women Winning Their Way.
I am so excited. I'm so excited to be here. And before we start, I have to tell you, I see you everywhere, okay? And everything that you do, it's like you've created this orbit of positivity around you.
Well, thank
And and when I read your posts and when I see you on video, I can't help but think she has such faith in people and that anyone, no matter who they can honestly be successful and they can be happy. And you create that and you create that on a daily basis
you.
and you give everyone around you so much energy that I don't know if you get told it enough, but my goal today was to make sure that I tell you right at the outset.
Wow. Thank you so much. That means the world to me and really just touches my heart. And I appreciate that so much because that's exactly what I want to do. And you and I were connected last year at a conference that we both were speakers at in
Yeah,
Madrid, Spain. And
yeah,
one of the things that really brought my attention to you and made me want to bring you onto my show is what you speak of. On this show, we talk about women winning their way. And so many times we focus on the business side and the strategies to get more business, the strategies to run our business. And all of those things are fantastic. But at the heart of it all is we need to make sure that not only are we making time for self care, but we also need to make sure that we're making time to nurture the relationships. And this is your circle of genius. You help women, men too, but you help people understand how we need to carve out time for our significant others, our families, our children, our best friends. And that's what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about why it's so important that we don't lose sight of that in our busyness of building our empires, but also really dive into some strategic ways that we can make this work because that's what you talked about at the conference is the fact that we all can do this. So, tell us a little bit about how you came to this idea of understanding why it's so important to nurture these relationships and then we can start diving into some strategies.
okay. Well, I guess I found it very important because I was a really young mum and young mum with her own business. So making sure that I scheduled enough time for my partner and my children was a really big thing because above all, I had to keep thinking, the most important thing, the most important thing. It's one of my sayings. I say it all the time. Keep the most important thing, the most important thing.
Mhm.
And you do it all for your children. You do it all. You don't just do things for yourself when you become a parent. So that's when I thought, I have to make sure that I carve out time each and every day to be there for the most important people in my life. So I
Mhm.
guess that's how I started because I had my first business when I was 18 and I didn't really know anything else.
Right. Yeah. On this show, we've had so many people talking, and I know I have shared this again, the importance of self care. But even when you talk about that, I think, especially as a professional mom, but even for those that don't have children, it sort of goes like children, career, then maybe we focus on ourselves, but like the significant other, the spouse, those things often come last. Why is it so important to make sure that we're also making time for those romantic and those friendship relationships that we have? Because without those, we're going to get lost as well.
Yeah, for sure. Look, let me start by saying you're 100% correct when you say before we get coupled up, we make sure that we take time for self-care. Well, that can slide once we get into a relationship and once we have children. And it happens in such a subtle way that we don't realize.
Hmm.
And there is no way that we can keep our confidence level up and the way we come across to our friends, to our partner, if we do start not feeling so good about ourselves.
Hmm.
So I guess the first thing is think of, hang on a minute, when I was single, I used to always have make sure my hair looked great, my nails looked great. I had a level of fitness because I would do some sort of physical activity. What's happened? And before we get to that point, and remember, like I had a beauty college, and I could see that women would come to us regularly, and then they'd get coupled up, and then you'd see them less and less, and then you might see them again when things are not going so good. How
Hmm.
about we fill in that gap by ensuring that, and it's all those little things. You know the saying, if the people that do the little things well do the big things well. So
Right.
it's putting that extra time into just taking care of your skin, putting a little bit of makeup on, and just looking at how you look before you go out, even if it's to the shops, because it's going to make you more confident.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
and so yeah, that's probably the first thing.
Hmm.
And when it comes to, you mentioned about your actual relationship, how I make sure that I make time for my partner, and I really delve into this in quite detail in my book, is first of all, when we're talking and when he's talking to me, I do not look at my phone. I actually turn my phone over.
Hmm.
A lot of times I put it on silent if I remember, but I do it while I still maintain eye contact. And I make sure that he knows that what he is saying is important. We are living in a world where everyone is just so attached to their phone. They take it to the bathroom with them, they take it everywhere with them. But keeping the most important thing is that person that means so much to you is speaking to you.
Yeah.
Make sure that your eyes don't go towards the TV,
Hmm.
that don't go towards your phone, that you really focus and really listen, because you don't get that time back.
Right. And I
You
think,
just
we're
don't.
so good about doing that with our clients. I would never sit with one of my client and not be fully present. But then we
Yes.
forget again that we have to do this for the others. And you mentioned the idea about, how we get into a relationship, or we stop dressing up, we stop taking care of ourselves. I also see a lot, and I know I have been, part of this too, is you get into a relationship and you stop dating. I
Ah,
think it's so important to remember, that before you got married, before you were together for several years, before you had kids, you were dating and you fell in love with this person. And not that you have to forget who you are today, but I think there is so much beauty in still dating, even though maybe you've been together 10 years or more. So, talk to me about, how more than just carving out the time. what are some real practices? Like, how can we still date our mates?
Okay. Everything I tell you is what I actually do. Okay. I'm not a person that says, oh, you should be doing this. I do this. And this is why I know it works. Yeah. Because I live what I speak about. So every week, without fail, we have date night or a date day where we spend the day together, we go out to lunch, it's just a whole day that is purely for our relationship.
Mhm.
Now, I've had clients that say, "Oh, but I can't afford to go out to dinner every week." It's not about going out for dinner. It's about having a special date night or date day where you are only focused on each other
Mhm.
and nothing else. So we have some things that it's almost like an unwritten law that we don't do on a date, first of all.
Okay.
And this is what makes it beautiful every time that we do it, which is like I said, every week, is we ensure that we don't talk about anything negative. For instance, we don't start talking about, oh, have you paid this? Have you paid that? It's a date. Huh?
Yeah, you
We
wouldn't do
don't
that
talk
on a
about
date with someone when you're first going out with them.
exactly. You don't talk about bills. You don't talk about your kids. You're on a date to get away from your kids if you've got kids. So there's certain things that it's an unwritten law that we just don't talk about. Now, I'm not one that leaves much up to chance. And I started doing this when I first started dating my husband because for a little while, we had a long distance relationship. So you may remember me speaking about this at the conference. Every time I thought of something great that I wanted to tell him, I would write it on a post-it. And so then when I spoke to him, I'd look at the post-it and say, oh, I just remembered this great thing. So when we spoke, it was always really positive and always, I would, think of a joke or whatever it was. So on our dates, I ensure that I always start with something really positive, and it could be something like, "Oh, you look so beautiful," which he always does. Okay? "You look so beautiful. Thanks for dressing up so nice to come out on our date." And then as the conversation goes on, I might, so I'm giving you real life examples, okay? I
Mhm.
might say, "You know, you were telling me about this work thing that you had to handle, and you did it so well. I don't know if, someone else may have handled it the same way, but I'm so proud, you know. So I always think of words
Mhm.
that make no matter who it is, make them feel like, you know what, I really like being with this person because they make me feel good about myself. And it's not a fake thing because, you know, we can all do with some encouragement.
Mhm.
Well, and every week, yes, there is. We've had so much to pack into our week that it could be something as simple as, I don't know how you managed to do everything this week. I'm
Right.
toasting to you. It's something
Exactly.
simple, but it's just keeping the conversations positive.
Yeah.
And what happens when we're with somebody? It doesn't matter who it is when we're totally focused on them and we're encouraging to them, it becomes a two-way street
Mhm.
because then they're thinking, you know what, you're not so bad yourself. And so I just find that these date nights, we always leave the restaurant or leave, the day or come home being so happy that we connected
Mhm.
because not every day are we connected. You
True.
know, we
Yeah.
may have an amazing relationship, but sometimes we feel that disconnect. And it's like we need to reconnect. And the way to reconnect is to have positive conversation.
Yeah. As busy professional women, we need to stay on top of our health and energy. The Working Women's Channel is proud to partner with Snapback Energy as a sponsor for today's episode. because they help us to show up as the best version of ourselves so we can take on the day no matter what is thrown our way. At Snapback Energy, their scientifically perfected formula is made to make you feel great, and it also is going to increase the overall energy level you have and the health of your gut and liver. Let Snapback Energy be part of your day and help you build the energy to fuel your mind, your body, and your goals. I love this so much. And, as I'm thinking of my own life, my parents actually modeled this. They are going on about 62 years together now. And, I love the idea of a date day. But the truth is, we don't always have time to do a full day, every week. But bringing that in, even if it's only once a quarter, and, starting to do these. And I think the key is exactly what you talked about is during that time it is positivity and connection time. There's enough time to talk about the bills and all the other stuff. And some of the things that my parents did, as I'm thinking about it now, is once a quarter, they would actually go away for a weekend and they would leave Friday at about 4:30, 5 o'clock. So they would have dinner together, at the hotel or whatever, and they wouldn't come back until Sunday after dinner. So they had these times, and it was the same thing. With my dad asked, "Oh, I wonder what the kids were doing." My mom would ask, "What kids?" Because she really wanted to again get connected. And almost every evening after dinner, they would go for a walk together. And that's what I remember them saying, that 30 minutes. And it was only that took 30 minutes because with four kids and both working, they were busy. But that 30 minutes gave them time to connect. And I think, again, it's so important. And I think if we're all being very honest with ourselves, again, it doesn't have to be several hours a day, it could even be the beauty of 30 minutes.
Exactly. And that that your parents will probably tell you that's why they are still married.
They are.
And
Yeah. Hmm.
and we that's what we do. We have our time that we don't have interruptions. And for instance, first thing in the morning, that's what we do is we have our coffee time.
Hmm.
And summer is beautiful here, so we just go in our backyard. We look at the water,
Hmm.
and we just have that time to just be together, like what your parents did. And that's why I say to people, it's not about going to expensive restaurants. It's just about connecting,
Yeah.
and the physical touch. There's nothing like it. You can bet that when your parents went for that walk, they held hands.
Hmm.
You know, it's all those little things
All those
that,
little
you
things.
know
Yeah.
yeah, that
So
that you can do.
let's do some strategies. So let's say that, somebody is wanting to start this. And again, they're going to start small. They're going to start with an hour. They're going to start with an
Yeah.
hour a week. We talked about, having dinner. We talked about maybe going for a walk. But what are maybe three other things that you feel are a great starting point for someone to dive into where, it could make all the difference and even just carving out 1 hour a week to do together?
I think, like, for us, we really love nature.
Hmm.
So if we're out in nature or we're out with our dogs, we it's something that, we have that we share. So spending that time, and of course, I'm always cooking, so we're always eating. And it's just a matter of taking a cup of coffee and going to your favorite place in either your backyard or something where you have no distractions. So
Hmm.
that's how you can start really little. Is that I always say to people, move away from TVs, move away from anything that's distracting. And if you can possibly get into nature, as you said, 10 minutes, 15
Hmm.
minutes,
Yeah.
where, and people that have been together for a long time don't necessarily need to talk. They just want to hold hands and have a coffee
Hmm.
or, have a glass of wine together. But it's having that special time where you can just be together with nothing else,
Right.
but always keeping that, if you're going to have a conversation, always keeping it positive and keeping it happy,
Yeah,
because it's contagious. When you're happy,
it is.
it's contagious. And you know what? No one can get mad at you if you're smiling, because
I
people say,
know. Yeah.
"You're always smiling." It's
Mhm.
like, well, I probably don't always say the right thing. So I figured if I smile, no one can get mad at me.
Exactly. And I would imagine, these same principles can translate to, again, your friendships. So when you have your friendships, again, same thing, put your phone away, be present with your friends, carve out time, and again, get away from the distractions. Keep it positive with your friends. Don't use it as a bitch session or a dump session. Again, keep it positive with them too. So I think, all of these ideas, it doesn't just have to be with your romantic partners. It can just be,
Yeah.
again, with, your other friendships, and also, relationships with your kids as well.
Yeah, well, look, now since I've moved, I have really had to focus on this and make it a priority, because my friends are scattered around the world now.
Hmm.
And, I talk about friendships a lot in my talks with people and on stage, that to have a friend, you need to be a friend. You can't always say, "Oh, that person never calls me." Be the one to call. Even
Yeah.
if you're the one that calls all the time, it doesn't matter. So now that, Australia and Greece are very far apart, but, with some people, I'm actually closer to them now than
Hmm.
I was when we lived in the same suburb,
Right.
simply because I ensure that I have FaceTime calls with them,
Yeah.
that if it's, because of the time difference, I'll text and I'll say, are you around for a quick chat?
Hmm.
And it's great, because it's almost like you're a little kid talking in class, because no one else necessarily knows what you're doing, but you're connecting, So
Yeah.
we've got all this great technology. Use it for
It.
stronger bonds and
Yeah.
stronger relationships. So,
Mhm.
whether it's girlfriends, whether it's my mum thought she'd really miss me, which, she does when I moved away. But because of FaceTime, she gets to see me all the time. She said, "Oh,
Exactly.
what you do
Yeah.
to your hair now? What you change everything."
And I think, in many ways, this is the positive example of technology and how we can use technology to, again, enhance relationships. And
Yes.
again, I remember when we were at the conference, there was one of our participants in the audience, her husband is in the military, so he's traveling. And this is exactly what you said. You said, why don't you do dinner over FaceTime? And you each, even though it's a different time zone, sure, you could be eating breakfast and he could be eating dinner, but you're still at the virtual table seeing each other. And I think,
Yes.
that's the beauty. And I think I resonate so much with this because I just relocated, and it's the same thing. I challenge myself, but it's not really a challenge because I love it, is to have two connection calls a day. So these are not work related. These are two reach out calls to my family, to my friends, doing these. And again, bringing in the positivity. I think the biggest lesson I've learned in the last couple of weeks is, as a mom, when I call and talk with my son, it tends to be like, "What are you doing at school? Have you done your homework?" And, he even said to me, thank God for my son, he grounds me so much. He's like, "How was your day?" "Yes, mom, I'm fine." And it's kind of a great reminder of, I need to have real conversations. I can't
Mm.
just always be, quote unquote, the hard mom, making sure he's doing the right things. There's time enough for me to get on him about his schoolwork. Sometimes the conversation needs to be a human conversation.
Yeah. And what I do is I make sure that, because it's good for me, it's not just good for the other person, is that I walk away from the computer and I generally go outside, even if I'm doing a FaceTime, is I go outside, so that person is my entire focus.
Mhm.
And we, even if we think that we're antisocial, even if we think that we're loners, you know, you definitely live longer if you nurture
Absolutely.
um, your relationships.
Mhm.
And you may have heard about the whole blue zone thing.
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
Now
that's a
I'm
great documentary on Netflix that they talk about it, and again,
yeah,
it's the eating, it's the connecting, all of these things, and
yeah.
we live longer.
And one of the things that came out of that whole blue zone thing that I found really interesting is that these people that live the longest but also are really happy are the ones that make time each day to connect with people that they care about.
Mhm.
And I just thought, wow, because I'm actually living in the blue zone now and
Yeah.
I can see it because we live in a village, you
Mhm.
know, and we're up high, we can see the water, we can see, and every day we hear goats, so uh, coming down, and it's just wonderful. But you start driving and you see people just taking the time to talk to each other.
Mhm.
It's just it's so beautiful, but that is what, at the end of the day, makes people really happy and makes people have something deep inside them that just no other businessy thing
Yeah.
can do it. It
Absolutely. Ah,
yeah.
well, Demi, it has been so amazing talking with you. Again, I appreciate you. You are living in the beautiful, island of Crete. And again, the picture behind you is just so incredible. And I appreciate you taking time because I know our time differences are, all over. And we're going to put all of your contact information because I want to drive people to your website, to your book, because again, you do more than just talk about relationships. You talk about confidence, you talk about success strategies in business as well as our personal lives. So I want people to reach out and connect with you. The last question I have as we bring this all together is because we're talking about women creating success on their terms. I would love to ask you, sitting where you are today, learning everything you've learned, how do you define success for yourself now?
A lot differently to what I did 20 years ago. How
Hmm.
I define success for myself now is, who am I affecting?
Mm.
So I feel successful if I know that, first of all, I'm leaving a legacy. The second of all is, whose life am I making a difference in?
Yeah.
And that's what makes me feel successful. If I've made a positive difference in someone's life, I feel successful. If I've made a positive difference in a lot of people's lives as their mentor, that's my hot button.
Yeah.
That's what makes me feel successful. And yes, it's certainly different to what I may have thought success looked like
Hmm.
years ago.
Beautiful. Well, Demi, thank you again. It has been an honor to call you a friend. I cannot wait to see you again. And hopefully, I will be coming to see you in your homeland now because it's on my bucket list of places to visit. But again, I honor you. I thank you. And I just think you are so beautiful inside and out. And thank you for being able to share some messages of positivity and love with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I've just loved it. Thank you so much.
What an incredible episode. I could talk with Demi all day long. So many of the things that she talked about, I think just really resonate. I think we forget. We forget where we came from and we forget the people that helped us get there, especially as an entrepreneur, especially as someone when we are building our business. We get so busy that we forget about the people that have supported us in our journey to getting where we get to go. So remembering, it's not about being there 100% of the time. It's about being there 100%. I love the idea she talked about, sitting down and just having coffee, but getting away from the distractions, going for a walk and holding hands, having ground rules for when you go out for a lunch or a dinner of not talking about the pain of the bills or the kids or the hard stuff. Make sure that you are acknowledging, respecting, and bringing the positivity back and knowing that these same ideas don't just come into play with our romantic partners, but also with our friends. Be a good friend, and your friends will be good back to you. So take time, take care, and nurture those who nurture you. Because at the end of the days, The businesses, the money, that can all come and go, but it's these relationships that can stay forever. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Women Winning Their Way. Make sure to share this episode, like it, rate it, and give us a review so that we can continue to impact the lives of women on a global level. I'm Clara Capano, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Women Winning Their Way.